So, in a nutshell, I don't want to go into this in detail, but there is principles to the transformation. It's about the game of impossible, and the game of impossible is about setting Olympic targets. If you don't set targets that are out there, that are impossible, then we'll always fall short. Then it will always be business as usual. So if it's business as usual, then Eugene and I will actually not have a job today, because the whole idea is we wanted to drive the civil service, or be a catalyst for the civil service to actually aim high enough. If you aim high enough at a level of excellence, then even if you don't achieve the level of excellence, you'll be bordering around outstanding. You know, so it is good in that sense that, you know, even if you fall short of your targets. I'm not advocating not meeting targets, yeah. I'm saying if we fall short, okay. So there are also results. We must be anchored against the outcome, yeah. So every single thing, there must be impact, and the impact must be felt by the general public, which is Malaysians as a whole. And then discipline of action, and I'll show you a graph later on how discipline of action actually takes place. It's about accountability, it's about removing roadblocks, it's about making sure that there are daily monitoring, weekly monitoring, and monthly monitoring with the right group of people. Yeah? And of course, situational leadership. Now, there can only be one person who can steer the ship, and that's normally the captain. You know, if you're not directed at the beginning, then see, I'm not an advocate of committees, solely because when a committee gets together, very rarely a decision is made. But if there's an individual actually accountable for certain things, right or wrong, they're answerable for it. So they are forced to make a call. So that's what we call by situational leadership. Yeah? And then only when things start happening, when there's a ripple effect, then only we allow delegation of authority. And of course, we have to collaborate with key partners and stakeholders, and no man is an island, yeah. And then this one is it's actually if you've heard of the phrase man proposed, God disposed. This is very much in divine intervention, yeah. So a lot of things we want to do, but certain times it's not because there's no will or there's no passion about getting it done. It's just that it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen because the odds are insurmountable. You know, the walls are just too thick to break down. So then we got to find another way to get around it. So the GTT roadmap as a whole, right, is very much a living document. What you've seen in the roadmap was put together and published in January last year, you know. So last year and today is about 15 months already. So everything in there has to evolve, has to change, because certain things don't quite happen the way we planned it to or the way we wanted it to. Yeah. So within the GTP, we are driven by 6 NKRAs, and I think most of you would know what they are. Fighting corruption, which is a popular one among Malaysians, reducing crime, reducing poverty, enhancing education, improving rural basic infrastructure and urban public transport. Now, these 6 NKRAs, right, by and large, they actually embody the whole concept of One Malaysia. If you look at this, if you look at each and every one of these NKRA, right, there is a reason why they were selected. They were selected because the general public, Malaysians, wanted improvements in this area. We had almost, I think, 20 plus, including healthcare. But we picked this top 6. You know, we picked the top 10 and then we streamlined it to top 6. And these top 6 were certainly issues that affects all Malaysians, regardless of whether you're Malay, Chinese, Indians, or others. Yeah, anyone that's residing in Malaysia, you will be affected by it. So, how did it all start? Of course, you hear of the famous labs. These are not test tubes and things like that. These are situations where we got, for the GTP at least, yeah, we got a group of civil servants, we got a group of people from the private sector, we got a group from NGOs to come together to actually address all of the 6 NKRAs, and they all were locked away in a room similar like this, but maybe half the size, and there was about 40 odd people per room, yeah, for each NKRA, right? And they spent the next 2 months sitting down there, looking at how we were going to address each of this issue, yeah? So can you imagine 40 people with different viewpoints, similar like all of you. Right now, I put you all in a lab and we say, how do we reduce crime? And then the first 2 weeks was quite illuminating. The first 2 weeks was quite vocal. Everyone came into the room, everyone had different ideas, and it was always the fault of the minister, it was always the fault of the police. Yeah? It was everyone else's fault. So this one will blame that one will blame this one. You know, everyone had finger pointing all over the place the first 2 weeks. So we got nowhere. We got nowhere, but we put all this into a worksheet on the wall, and we said, okay, these are the issues, how do we address it? So we basically streamlined all these issues that were brought up, and then we moved on to looking for solutions. And then we realized that certain issues that were brought up don't even need a solution. It wasn't even an issue in the first place. So by the time the 3rd or 4th week came about, you know, the people who were pointing finger at each other suddenly sat together and developed solutions. You know, the PDRM and the customs officer and the likes all sat together and started saying that actually this is not an issue. We just need to work together. And they developed solutions. And they developed ideas on how to overcome all the obstacles. And that was what the labs were for, actually. So we came up with all these initiatives, and we tabled it at the open day, where in KL and in Sabah and Sarawak. Now, as much as we would like to actually hold it at every state, and we have requests to hold it at every state, unfortunately, we were just not able to mobilize it. One, it costs a lot of money to mobilize things like that. So we decided to put it all on our website, and hopefully people will read it, and we try to put it out in the newspaper, we try to put it out on on-ground engagements such as this, but it's limited. So hopefully after today, you know, if you have a fair enough understanding of this, you could help us actually demystify what this government transformation program is all about. Yeah? And then of course after the open day, we took the feedback from the general public. We even took feedback from the opposition party, and we asked Lim Kit Siang, you know, what does he think about this? He agreed that it was brilliant. He agreed that it was really good, but it will take the government 100 years to achieve what we want to do. So that is the level of skepticism he had, you know. And it's fine, it's fine. You know what? Because the targets were impossible, he didn't think we would achieve anything within a given year, within even a given quarter. He didn't think that we would actually even come close to even doing anything right. Yeah? But he said the book was well written. Yeah? So we published the book, and we told the general public what we were going to do. And then, of course, in a few other slides, I'll show you what we actually did. And then in March this year, we actually published the GTP annual report. Now, I must say this, that there's no country on this green earth that's actually done this at this level, has published a book promising the rakyat what the government is going to do, and then after that, write an annual report. And the annual report, just to, it's not all song and dance, it's not all about, you know, good news. If you look at the annual report, there are certain parts in the annual report where we didn't meet the target, and we are transparent about it. And I think it's in page 248 or something like that. if I'm not mistaken. It's in the back page somewhere. You can see all those in red we didn't achieve. And we published it. And then we also published testimonials from general public. You know, and people think that the annual report is all about a feel-good book. It's not a feel-good book. It's a book based on reality, on what the GTP has actually achieved and not achieved. So have a read about it. I think what you all hold in your hands today is actually a summary. And I hope that you'll get the thick one and then read about it. Yeah. So at the end of the lab, okay, these were all the things that we did. You know, we had 8 labs, we had 11 binders, that made out 3,000 pages each. You know, there were 43 national KPIs, there were 104 programs, 2,029 projects, and over 7,000 activities, right? And these activities are across the whole entire nation, not just Klang Valley or Barisan states, yeah? It was across all states in Malaysia, yeah? So the idea of the labs is to demystify all the motherhood statements and all this strategic thought process and bring it down to 3 feet. How do you build this road? What is the first process that you need to do? You know? So we really got into the nitty-gritty of it and how much will it cost the government. And we were quite careful and quite diligent in that. So due diligence were actually done in the labs. Yeah? And all these boxes were all sent to each minister for them to read, you know, for them to understand what the GTP was all about. Yeah? So hopefully, you know, it was read and hopefully it was understood and implemented. Okay? So in a given year, within the first year itself, in 2010, the GTP is delivering results. Now, it is not 100%, okay, as to what we plan to do, but certain specific areas, we exceeded targets. Yeah? Crime. Don't crucify me, you can crucify him afterwards. Okay? He said, no, not he said, you're not good friends. Okay? Actually, in index crime and all that, there was a 15% drop, right? And index crime is he'll define what index crime is. Even today, I still have questions about index crime, but never mind, he'll explain it better. What is relevant to us is the street crime. You know, there's a 35% drop in street crime. Now, this involves snatch thefts and break-ins and things like that. So, how this drop came about is because they did a very, very intense study of where were the crime hotspots.